Hello, thank you for joining us today. I'm Laura Kunkel, America in Bloom Executive Director. America in Bloom has been around for almost 25 years, and we envision communities across the country as welcoming and vibrant places to live, work, and play, benefiting from colorful plants and trees, enjoying clean environments, celebrating heritage, and planting pride through volunteerism. Through our programs, grant opportunities, online resources, and the sharing of best ideas from towns and cities across the country, we empower communities to beautify and improve the overall quality of life. Today's webinar is an example of the ways that America in Bloom shares information to help communities become more beautiful, vibrant, and sustainable. You can learn more about AIB by visiting our website at americainbloom.org. A quick housekeeping note, if you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section of your Zoom toolbar, which is likely at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer questions at the end. Also, this webinar is being recorded. It will be posted on the AIB website later today and also posted on the AIB Facebook page. Today's webinar is entitled From Foliage to Flowers, Raise the Bar, Developing a Year-Round Container Program for Your Community. We are joined by Nancy Chennault, Castle Rock, Washington's beautification cheerleader. Today we get to tap into her years of hands-on experience and community-driven passion. We are so grateful to Nancy for being with us today. Take it away.
Good morning, Laura, and thank you very much for joining our webinar today on behalf of American in Bloom. I join you from Castle Rock, Washington, an American in Bloom city for 13, 14 years now. Sitting in my office surrounded by houseplants because we had frost warning in Castle Rock last night. So they all got moved inside off my front porch. So our weather is changing, and that's part of what we'll talk about today is how you adjust to those seasonal changes and make sure that you can include a 12-month program within your containers. As you can see in Castle Rock, we are surrounded by a number of different organizations which are really important to us. Of course, Castle Rock Blooms is the volunteer group, works with the city of Castle Rock, the Castle Rock schools, and then we are part of the Castle Rock Community Development Alliance, which is a nonprofit that was formed for sustaining economic viability of Castle Rock. And of course, American in Bloom, because without American in Bloom, the progress we make with our evaluations has led us down, it's given us a foundation so that we can move forward. So it does take all of us. We're all working together. And one of the things that I just pulled up a couple of weeks ago was a saying from Revitalizer Diet says the simplest and best way to start improving your community is to find a friend and plant flowers with them. I can't think of a better way to grow friendships and grow a community than actually gather people together and be able to plant flowers. So the thing that you are going to find as you're gathering your group together is that you will have stakeholders, you will have people that believe in you, and whether you're starting a new program or whether you like to enhance or improve on an old program, just remember who those stakeholders are and make sure to include them in the group of everything that you're doing. A little bit of our history, ours started all with a simple display of Vista bulbigum petunias in 2011. It was a cleanup day project in 2012. Blooms wasn't even an infant stage then. But then in 2012, Castle Rock enrolled in the American in Bloom program because people that saw that island of big impact, one island in Castle Rock in front of the elementary school, they wanted more. And that's all it took for the community to jump on board and want to have a Bloom team, for one thing, and then also be able to join American in Bloom and make progress forward. We had high school students help us that year. It was my cleanup day project with Castle Rock Chamber for 2011. So that was our first collaboration with FFA students and Castle Rock horticulture students was in the layout and the planting of those islands. We also included in our 2012 cleanup day project a renovation of City Hall. So that was a way to get even more community members involved, be able to have service organizations, churches, the chamber, of course, were there with their volunteers on a cleanup day, and also be able to generate interest within those that like to plant flowers. And many of our volunteers were actually volunteers that were part of that cleanup day in 2012. And this is just one of many projects, but it was quite visible, obviously, being at City Hall. And in 2025, this is what City Hall looks like today. Always impactful, always a showstopper, always a place that the community takes pride in. And that's kind of what you're after, whether you start small, whether you start big. We started with the city in a renovation of the new downtown streets, just wanting to see consistency in new planters. They wanted to see something other than whiskey barrels at one, concrete aggregate at another. Maybe somebody had some plastic of different sizes. So they asked us as Bloom Team volunteers to come up with a plan to have some consistency within planters. This just happens to be the top one, a planter I did for a business as a uh, business to enhance the Festival of Lights 2010. Or excuse me, the street was new, so it was 2011. But that gave us an idea of just how much variation we had in planters on the street. As you can see in the lower picture, we've not only gained more planters, but we also have gained that consistency. Bloom's also needed a revenue source, as you will find that you need to be able to fund your plants and your supplies. We developed that by having a business sponsorship and donations added to our program. When the nonprofit CRCDA was formed, it became a reality because then we were able to actually go after some grants and some donations that were tax deductible. But in the meantime, we asked the businesses to sponsor, but we wanted to keep those costs low. We started out in 2012 with 20 planters. We bought really inexpensive plastic ones, and we were able to keep our cost paying for the plants and everything that we needed to $28. That encouraged more businesses to participate and be able to be part of our program. In 2005, we now do 198 planters. We mostly have the crescent true drop planters, which you see in the picture on the right, which has definitely improved our maintenance issues. Also, given a big show of support from the business owners themselves because they're learning how to take care of them, et cetera, et cetera. Our sponsorship is still able to be held at $55 because those crescent planters were a donation from a community member that saw the benefit of having, again, an upgraded planter and also to have something that would have long sustainable in our town for a show. We do have 2 seasons in Castle Rock. Call them billing seasons if you want, but basically we've divided our planting time and our enhancement of downtown streets into 2 seasons. We call holiday late winter, which we're going to talk about first today, and then we have summer with autumn enhancements. And I'm sorry. Autumn enhancements actually comes before holiday and late winter. But the thing that you want to do as you're building your 2 seasons is that you want to start small and you want to start with what volunteers can handle. One of the things that you don't want to do is overwhelm anyone. We do hope and anticipate that our businesses will learn how to take care of the planters, want to water the planters, and having that consistency of planting not only the type of plants, but also the containers helps them, helps us teach them. And before you know it, we've turned people who never thought they could ever love to take care of a plant into plant people. So not always successful with everybody, but at the same time, we do have people join the ranks because they see that things are manageable and they're able to help. Our commitment to year-round containers. Will your climate and floral displays support that? Maybe your streets are not accessible in the winter. Maybe you've got a lot of snow and ice. Then you can always pull your planters aside, just let them be covered up with snow. But the main thing is to take your climate into consideration when you're planning your floral displays. And also that may have something to do about where these are placed. Right now we have planters on the east side, the west side, north and south, but the main downtown core is where we try to have the most impact in our downtown business district, as well as some of the business districts on both the west side and the east side have a display of planters in the businesses there. So take that into consideration when you're considering a program as well. Just exactly what will your climate support? And then again, keep expenses minimal to encourage participation. You want people to join in and add to those numbers because they're being taken care of, they see the benefits. And once you start, you will find that your residents, businesses, and visitors and shoppers won't let you stop. This particular display happens to be baskets, but I bring it up because they were extra baskets for downtown lampposts that weren't installed yet. And so we just started staging them alongside the Vault Books and Brew downtown. This is the third year that we've done that. And we heard after the first year, whatever you do, don't take those away. Be sure that you have that display everywhere, every year. It's a photo op. People stop with, when they do their daily walks, they bring their families there, they stage clubs and groups there in front of that. And so somehow we need to maintain that. Even at some point, I'm sure we're going to need the baskets. So once you start, don't let it stop. Um, Beginning in midsummer, or as you're beginning to maintain these planters, you want to evaluate your summer performance throughout the season. We work really hard with experience of what works in our particular climate, that we try to make sure we have the right plant in the right place. This particular planter was done for a shady area, one that would tolerate less sun and maybe some morning sun. And this is what the container started with. We also put in some juncus and what we called water hogs. We found the first year with the crescent planters, we ran into where we were overcompensating because we were so used to watering our planters and watering our planters and watering our planters. We were watering too much. And so, excuse me, so we had some plant water issues that we had to learn from. And in doing that, we thought we need to put more plants in there that will actually suck up more water. And so there you will see the juncus, you will see the Swedish ivy, you see the cannas, you see the potato vine, because they do have a need, especially as the season goes on, of lots and lots of water. The planters start out all basically planted the same. This is the shady side of the street with a little bit of afternoon sun, and they all start small. And then during the month of August, I was able to capture this photo of what those planters in front of the turquoise spa looked like after they'd had a summer of maintenance. Wonderful warm summer temperatures. Our potato vine this year just went bonkers because we were so hot for so long. We usually don't see it until August in Washington, Southwest Washington. It's mild, it's marine push, doesn't really get heat in the summer, but about the last 5 years, we've seen incredibly hot summers with longer periods of drought. So the potato vine responded tremendously this year, and the business owner did not want us to take the potato vine out of her doorway where it was creeping up the door frame. So it was something that attracted a lot of attention to her business, and also her customers talked about it as well. You want to provide information for your business owners so that they can have success. The reservoirs, as you know, with the Crescent True Drop planters, I have a reservoir. They also have an indicator button. So that took us a while to learn about that process. The folks that were monitoring it through 2024 did a really good job of taking notes, paying attention. Of course, you've got sunnier side of the street, you've got shadier side of the streets. Your plants are planted accordingly, but then you monitor their water needs. And this year, with as hot and dry as it was, we found that we were watering more. So now next year, do we back off a little? Do we think that we may or may not have those hot days? You're always learning. You're always asking questions, and you're always taking notes and writing stuff down. You want to give information to your people that visit as well. We have a volunteer who does QR codes for us so that you can actually click on when you see a planter and go to a website to get the information about the plants. So we're able to share that with the public, and we find business owners will also come out and check out the plants they have in their planter. And it saves putting in a lot of tags and other signs. Tags are usually buried by the time the plants get big anyway, so we don't worry too much about having tags in there, but they do have the access to plant descriptions by the QR code. And then, as I mentioned before, you do want to document, take notes, write down exactly what your findings are. This year, we had the opportunity with our Sunshine Award from Centauri for 2024. We became the beneficiary of the award for some Centauri sun parasols mandevilla. And never having those in Castle Rock before because we're not a tropical like climate and we don't have those hot summers, but we would give them a shot and we would give them a try and we get them in a lot of different locations where we could see how they would perform. So these are in front of what we call our Bloom's warehouse or headquarters. They did really well as planted as a group, combination of morning sun, heats up pretty well against that brick wall until the sun goes behind the building. But they did very well and we're up to the top of the 8-foot pole and wrapping around the Rocket Boy mural art on the gas main. So they love that spot. One thing we found is that many of the business owners that had Mandevilla were overwatering. So we were able to caution them to keep them a little bit on the dry side. We also planted the Mandevilla in combinations with some of our other plants, and they could not compete with our more vigorous plants, such as the Supertunia bubblegum and the potato vine. Bigger planter than what was in front of the bed, same 8-foot pole, same collection of plants exactly. And we found that they just could not keep up and compete. You can see they were poking through, but these are the kinds of things you want to document so you know you can have success in following years. And then always grow new plants and attend trials. Anytime you give an opportunity to learn, to try new things, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to do that. Because without the experience of growing something, it's really hard to tell what it will do for you in subsequent years. We're fortunate that as a proven winner signature city, that we are allowed to get some of the trial plants. So this year we were able to trial the 2026 new plant material. We don't get all of it by any means, but we do get a nice sampling of annuals and some perennials that we can try. They happen to send us exactly 3 of each variety. So we had 3 planters in front of the bet, and it's called the bet because it used to be the Castle Rock Theater. And so one of our volunteers began to call it the Bet Bloom's Event Theater. So it kind of stuck. And it's easier than always saying the Bloom's headquarters behind the vault on Front Avenue. But the Bet is a place where we rely on for a lot of things, as you'll see throughout our process here. But the planting of the samples and giving us a chance to monitor as they grow. These are newly planted on the right, having the tags there so we can keep track of it, and then watching them grow, perform, coexist, be able to see what has vigor and what doesn't. See how they make a nice full planter. And this is about, they weren't planted until about the 3rd week in June. And then they were this is about 8 weeks later. So you can see we're into August already and it's already filling in and looking really nice. A month later, the Ipomea, the potato vine, the Medusa Black just began to take over totally. And so that was something that we learned in our planters with the established Ipomea. And so now we see it with the new one. And so if we use these next year, we're going to be cautious of exactly where we use them. And now but the potato vine is still going like crazy in 1st of October, middle of October, although it may have gotten frosted last night. But the main thing is that it's all potato vine. You can't see one flower in those planters. It's all the Medusa Black. So that's something to keep in mind as you're trialing plants. Give yourself an opportunity to learn about them. So now we transition into autumn. It is October. Now you may have a frost, which makes your planters look like the one on the left. We haven't had a frost like that for a number of years, but we're always kind of attuned to it to see how we can transition into autumn through October, because we don't come in with a fall planting of anything because of our climate, and we have to gear up for what happens for the holiday season. And so we come back in with some pampas grass, we'll put in some dried hydrangea blossoms, we'll kind of dress them up for fall. And if the weather takes them earlier, we'll just cut them back and begin to clean them up. But we try to leave our planters each season that we have to transition not empty for very long periods of time. We want to make sure that the business owners that sponsor and also the public that comes in and likes to look at them don't have a big window where there's nothing going on. So we always want to make sure that our timing of transitioning is something that we can live with, if you will, and keep it as short as we can. We also have some big um, pot trees. We call them, it's the Sangukaku coral bark maples that have the red stems in the winter. And then also this beautiful fall display. And then we've put the um, Fairy Trail Bride cascading hydrangeas around the base, which bloom with the white flowers in the spring. And so we have that for some fall color accents, and then we kind of decorate different areas with some Halloween type um, decorations just to kind of make things look a little bit more festive as we get toward Halloween Jamboree, which is the last Sunday in October. And we hope that our weather conditions are such that we're able to get to that point and still have flowers, as in this case at City Hall, with their accents of hydrangeas and pampas grass. The 1st of November, right about, we want to get through Halloween because we're not going to pull the Halloween decorations until the 31st. So November 1st, we're out in force and we start cutting back and cleaning out the containers. Again, we try to do it quickly. We want to transition to the holiday season as quickly as we can. We don't pull the plants out, we cut them off. And the reason we cut them off is because we want that root structure to stay within that planter. It'll rot if they freeze through the winter, which is fine. But we want that root structure to act like an oasis block or a gripper so that when we put the foliage of the conifers and stick them into those planters, because they're just cuts, we want to make sure they have something to stick to. If we had loose soil, wind came through, we would end up with just them greenery flying everywhere. So we always just cut them back, do a little bit of cleanup of the planter if it needs it. But then we begin to stage and collect our greenery, which will go into the planters for the holiday season. We have a base that's with the Western red cedar because it has such a great flow to it. Um, they're always teasing me because I go around saying it's all about the base. If I'm talking to somebody and previewing how to get started with it, it's all about the base. You build the base, and then they give me a bad time uh, about quoting that song. So all about the base, but the main thing that we add is also some Douglas fir. Um, and then we have some other conifers, such as Leyland cypress and things like that, that can also be supplemental to the base. We have had drought situation since about mid to late April 2025. Always going into October, we'll have periods of drought that precede that. I get really nervous because I worry that greens that are cut from trees that haven't been irrigated are less likely to last the season we need them to. Um, Homeowners, property owners, volunteers, they all have, greenery that can be cut. We've also specifically planted some things in Castle Rock landscapes that we can cut from. Those are irrigated. But the main thing is that we can't put dry cedar boughs in that hasn't had a good amount of water. So I pray for 3 weeks of good rain to soak the ground. And I heard last weekend we had 1.5 inches. So we're on our way. So by the time we begin cutting the 1st of November, hopefully we'll be well on our way to having good turgid uh, foliages that will be able to maintain through the seasons. You can see Cheryl planting with the base of the cedar and how it flows nicely out of the container. And that's the beginnings of our plantings, and then bringing in some of the other conifers as Linda and Debbie are doing as in the bigger planter to get some lift to it, to build some dome to it, and then bringing in what we call the fancy greens, some of the specialty things that are silver on the back, bringing in broadleafs, but always last. We never cut broadleafs until at least the second week in November. They will be the first ones who will begin to fade and dry out as the season warms in the spring, and you'll see why that's important here in just a little bit. But the broadleafs, the fancy greens, adding all of those accents, they're a standalone. They look really good, but we want to have those all ready to go in all 198 of them with decorations by Shop Small Saturday, which is always the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So that's the push in November is to get those done, to get them decorated, be able to put the colors in and make them look as festive as we possibly can for Shop Small Saturday. And then they'll be ready for the Festival of Lights and anything else that we have coming down for wintertime, December type festivals. I can't let a discussion of containers go by without talking about our holiday gnomes. These were started about 6, 7, 8 years ago. Just a Pinterest thing that we saw and then thought, oh, that looks like fun. It's a tomato cage. Experimented around with a little bit. Linda with the street art committee chair, who's also a Bloom volunteer, they took that on as a street art project because it's street art, actually, don't you think? They're perfect little works of art. But they have a workshop every fall where people can come and learn so they can build one at home. It starts with a tomato cage. Linda made all of the gnome hats, and then of course we've gotten the different types of noses. Always have little red gloves that are attached, and so the gnomes are placed throughout town. You can see where they're loaded up and ready to go to businesses and City Hall and different places around town, and they've always attracted a lot of attention. Again, providing photo ops for people. Very simple to make. You just need a good supply of a flowing type conifer like Western red cedar. Last year, Festival of Lights chose gnome for the holidays for their theme. So we found these little stick art pieces that we were able to stick in all the planters and kind of tie the whole gnome theme together. So that was kind of fun. And there's our head gnome builder. So she's probably gonna really like that picture because you can't really tell that it's Linda. Midwinter, we begin to transition again. This is a sixth grade, middle school sixth grade gardening student who is helping us clean up all the decorations. So we leave the decorations until about the middle of January. City leaves the lights up, begins to take them down. January in Castle Rock can kind of be bleak and gray. Not much going on. So having the decorations is a little bit of a elongated festive touch, if you will. And so we keep track of how the planters are responding to our maybe improving weather conditions and maybe warmer weather conditions because many of them have pre-planted bulbs in there. And we want to get the greenery out before, but the greenery sometimes will last clear until February, March. Our seasons are moist. We've got plenty of cooler weather. And so the greenery will last for a long time, and maybe even until mid-February. But we check the bulbs to make sure that when we're pulling the greenery out, we're not breaking them off and ruining the display. You can see that these planters that have been cleaned of greens have the yellow at the bottom, which shows you that they were actually beginning to push through the greens. And it won't take them very long before they'll all be totally green and be fine. We just have to be really, really careful when we pull the greenery out that we don't do any damage. And then it's time to bring in the new pansies and always additional bulbs because especially tulips, they're not long lived in our area because our winters are usually too mild. So we want to make sure that we have the red tulips and Castle Rock planters and a few daffodils to supplement where maybe they haven't, because the little tete-a-tete daffodils are so important to our really, really early spring. But there again, we use the bet space, our warehouse space, to offload the order that we put in. We work with a grower who is quite flexible. We talk about weather conditions, we talk about availability. We want to make sure that we get them again, so we're not leaving planters empty for long periods of time, but we also want to be conscious of weather conditions and not put volunteers or the pansies out there when it gets really, really cold. But they're tough and they can handle frost and freeze. It's just that we don't necessarily want to plant into frozen soil and don't if we can help it. So again, we keep track of exactly what the bulbs are doing, and then we watch them grow and see them fill in. Very little maintenance is needed. Our displays will have the daffodils first, and then they'll fade, and then the tulips will come on. Sometimes we'll have a little bit of cleanup on some spent flowers on the pansies or the daffodils, but for the most part, they're pretty well maintenance free. And so that's a time of the season. And then you can see with the pink flowering dogwood in the background, this is about the 1st of May. And meantime, what's happening in this mid to late May is that we're getting ready for summer, of course. And believe it or not, in mid to late May, the pansies are at their best, and it's time to say so long. And it's like, oh no, we've got to pull them out. But in order to plant summer, we've got to be able to do that. What we have done, starting from the beginning, with fewer planters, we asked the business owners if they'd like to take them home. And we had a lot of people who did, but we didn't have as many, of course. And so now with all of them, we have people that put boxes outside their business. We have people that'll bring us boxes and say, can you save me some? And we have composted minimal amount of pansies over the last several years because people will take them home and then we hear the stories about how they've had such a wonderful time and that the pansies are doing great and where they planted them. And so it's a great public relations thing, is plus it keeps us from composting an absolutely beautiful plant. And then there's the prepping of the planters that'll happen after the pansies are pulled and getting in fresh soil, adding a little bit of, we use Kellogg Garden Paradise 555 organic to mix with that soil and get the planters ready for summer flowers. And this is happening again about mid to late May, depending on what the weather does. We use a custom peat light soil mix, something that I've worked with since the early 80s, and I appreciate the fact that we're able to get it custom blended for us. And it's a good mix for growing in, it's a good mix for planters and baskets. And so we make sure that we supplement and add to and enhance, if you will. So in the background, while all of this is going on, we do have donated greenhouse space where we're growing our summer flowers. We sanitize the greenhouse with the Fizan, which you'll see on the left-hand side, and then we stage our nutrition. We have the Nature Source plant food, which we also trialed and made sure that it would do what we needed it to do. It's used at the high school, it's used in my greenhouse, it's used to grow the blooms plants, and it's used by the city when they fertilize and add the nutrients once a week to the baskets in the summertime. So we're a fan. We know it works. Like I say, we trialed it and we trialed everything to make sure that it works. So meanwhile, back in the greenhouse, while the pansies are having a wonderful time, the first of the orders for the container plants come in. And these are ordered before the first of the year to make sure that the numbers are what we need and the staging of the orders as we want to plant them. We don't plant into heat. If we have something that needs heat, we'll ask if there's a little bit of room at Castle Rock High School for us to squeeze some things in that may need to get started with heat. But we try to grow the plants cold in a cold frame situation and stage the orders such that we're putting the things that demand heat or warmth a little bit later in that shipping season. But we'll start about the 10th, week 10, about that second week in March. The majority of the plants will go into the 4-inch pot because they'll be well rooted by the time it's time to plant. The ones that we take to the high school we'll put into 606s because they take up less space and we don't want to jeopardize their growing space because they too, even with 4 greenhouses, are full as they get ready for their plant sale. We monitor night temperatures very carefully. We use the Pro 70 Pro 70 insulate fabric, which will keep that under temperature about 8 to 10 degrees warmer than ambient air temperature. And of course, in the cold frame, you've got the sides. And so you're able to keep those temperatures about 35, even though it may be 29 outside. And even your ambient air temperature in a green cold frame may be 29, but underneath it'll be closer to 34, 35. So that's very helpful, and it was a good investment. The plants will continue to grow, fill in. These are all will be in containers in downtown Castle Rock. We also have growing at this time the plants for the adopted gardens in Castle Rock, which is a totally different arm of what we do as Castle Rock Blooms, but they're all grown at the same time and come on in a colder environment. So they're tough and they're tight and they really transplant out really well. And then it's time to plant. Late May, early June, again, it's all weather dependent. How the temperatures relate and how we're able to get the plants into the containers without elevations. What we've run into the last couple of years is that we've actually had spikes in temperature instead of cold. So we'll end up with it 98 2 days after we plant, which is always not the best thing for a newly planted plant because it'll be stressed from that. I'd almost rather it would be a little bit chilly, but we can't always call that. And we try to look ahead to the weather and pick the best times that we feel that we can get the majority of the plants into our containers downtown. Again, always keeping in mind reflected heat off of buildings, et cetera, et cetera. They're staged at the bed. Again, once again, we put them with information for those that plant. We want to make sure that they have availability of plants that will tolerate sun, those that will tolerate shade, those that have a duplicity where they could grow in both. We also want to identify and have folks be able to read the tags so that they know what can be a thriller, what's going to be your center point, what's going to be your filler, what's going to come in around the edges, and then what would be your spiller. So the thriller, the filler, and the spiller is something that you want to pay attention to as you begin to plant your planters so that you've got that continuity of design and also are able to get things in so that they don't get overcrowded by something else. Not always the case when you're dealing with a summer where things were as robust as they are. The plants arrive down at the bed. People that have plants on outlying areas, planters that they take care of will actually come and pick things up and take what they need to get their planters planted. We have business owners that love to plant, and Victoria at Parwell Farms always wants to plant her bee boxes, and she comes over to the racks and she picks out her plants, and we love it. And then she has the best time planting her bee boxes. The sponsored planters we do because we like that continuity on down the street for those, but she picks from the plants that we're using as well. And so therefore she also fits right in and they're always really lush and very beautiful. And she has a wonderful time. She's a very busy lady and it's nice to give her that little bit of uh, respite from doing business and just let her plant with flowers. That's what it's all about. We also have volunteers that just totally enjoy the planting process. Cheryl has family on the East Coast and she has a home there. And so basically, what she does is she comes to plant in the spring, loves every minute of it, stays a little bit in the summer, and then she goes back in the um, early fall, but she always comes back for the holidays as well. So those are her two joys, is being able to put those containers together, and we appreciate that as just as much. She's one of the veterans and heads off with a wagon, and away she goes to be able to get those planters planted. We have a number of the newer planters, as I said, not the planter person, the planter person is a veteran, but the newer planters themselves, we had some learning to do with our placement and how we would place them in. We have large planters like Linda's planter in front of Studio 117 that she designs and plants and takes care of. Um, as I mentioned before, we watch the root development, we talk about loosening the roots, et cetera, et cetera. And the result is a planter that will just completely outperform anything where the roots have been put in too tight. We get worn out, we get tired, we work hard. We really appreciate the enthusiasm and the energy that the younger generation brings. This is at United Methodist Church, and the Thomas family has adopted those planters. And this is Michael, and he's going after it for improving his soil and getting his plants in. But it's those younger people that are adding to the um, first generation, if you will, of Castle Rock volunteers, and we really appreciate their input and their enthusiasm because sometimes we just wear out, and we've hiked a lot of miles and put a lot of steps in, and we're just totally worn out. But at the same time, we've always got backup. We've always got people that are there. Um, the next stage, once everything's planted, of course, is to keep it maintained and keep it watered. The Water Wizards of Fertilizer Fridays started with the beginning of blooms, and we only had 28 planters, but we had to get out and make sure that we were training a business owner or talking to the business owner about how to do it, but we always had to get them off to a good start. So we would haul water in jugs and wagons and, the whole routine. Now we have a water wizard like Sarah, who has a tank in the back of her Subaru. She was the first of three. Now we have three tanks in private vehicles, and then we also have access to a side-by-side with a 65-gallon tank that belongs to with Public Works that my husband Jim uses to water the big pot trees and things. But they're dividing your area into grids. That was established in 2020. As we realized as we're adding planters, we had people all over the place. And did this get watered? And has that been watered and, fertilized? And so having a grid system that was established, Linda came up with the idea 2020 to everybody has an area of responsibility. That's going to get done. If they can't do it on Friday, they'll do it Thursday night or they'll do it Saturday morning. But if they need help or they're going to be out of town, then they contact another wizard and they make sure that the area is covered. So make sure that you have an organizational framework that will support that so that one person or one group of people don't have to think about doing everything, that they're able to share. As I mentioned before, we've got the side-by-side with that the city uses, and then we also have business owners, as you see on the right, that have taken on the task of keeping the reservoirs filled and making sure that they and this is a plant lover. And as I mentioned before, we have some people that have turned into plant lovers. We have the adopted gardens at parks where we have volunteers, of course, that take care of those. And then just kind of a unique situation next to the motorcycle track where the truck they use to keep the dust down on the motorcycle track, the volunteer that takes care of the landscape on the corner of PH10 and West Side Highway uses his 3,500-gallon water truck to spray. And sometimes during a hot, really dry period, and as the plants grow, you need more water as well, he'll fill that truck twice. And he actually had to do it 3 times this year. So we really appreciate Eldon's commitment to keeping that landscape thriving on that corner. We also have what we call the hemlock rounds. We have a round planter where our signature tree, the mountain hemlocks, are planted. 6-gallon pots are nestled in there. We find as the trees grow, we're using less and less of those 6-gallon pots because the trees need space to grow. So it may be a program that we divest from and don't do, although it does add a wonderful spark of color with the rest of the plantings in Castle Rock. The aggregates are city planters. We also plant and take care of those. And then, of course, the big pot trees, these with the hydrangeas in them that bloom in about the end of May, 1st of June, right in there. Floral impact. What that does for a community, for community pride, quality of place. From quality of place comes economic development, and we've seen that tenfold in Castle Rock. Totally different subject, but this is the 2025 American in Bloom with the Floral Impact Award that we very much appreciate receiving for Castle Rock because it recognizes all the hard work of all the different folks. And as I said, it's a three-legged stool, if you will. It's the baskets, it's the containers, and it's the adopted gardens that makes it work. So just as a reminder, start small and build on the enthusiasm because there will be. Even if it's 3 planters, 6 planters, 8 planters, however you do it, just make sure that you do it according to what works for your particular climate. Keep the prices as low as you possibly can so that all businesses can afford to sponsor, but also volunteers stay engaged when businesses share with them how much they like their planters, and also the public when they visit. We're on the streets a lot. We have a lot of people stop us and thank us. We say that's our pay, that we can add a 0 to our long list of zeros because we're all volunteers. But the main thing is that having that keeps volunteers engaged, and it's because there's more planters out there on the streets of Castle Rock. Always charge only enough to pay for your expenses, with maybe a little bit left over for high-vis vests and some tools and things like that. Have you considered growing your own? Because growing your own keeps that expense low. We are just very, very fortunate to have this donated space and to have the volunteers that are going to be able to do that. And those can be grown, sorry, the pun, as volunteers learn about the plants and become even more engaged with the program, they also can become good growers. So never look past the fact of growing your own. And then if you do have a little bit left, and I mentioned it before, the high vis vests, which are important, the tools. And then we also have a lot of pro bono planters, City Hall, the library, the post office, the senior center, different parks. All of these have planters that we don't have sponsored. And so anything that's left over is able to get the plants that and the supplies that we can do those. The establishment of a nonprofit equals the opportunities for those tax deductible donations, and they have been huge for us. They've grown over time. Our website at castlerockcda.org has two buttons. There's all of the committees within that nonprofit are listed, but Bloom's is at the top because alphabetical listing, right? But you can do PayPal, you can do a credit card. We make it easy for those that want to donate. We also have ones that like to donate every month. Maybe it's $20. It's $120 a year. Every little bit helps. So folks are able to do that and have that show that they're supporting Castle Rock without having to remember. And we have people hand us dollars and hand us $10 and hand us 50 and say, go buy coffee, and we go put it in the plant pot. But anyway, so it's just a way that people can feel like they're connected to their community. I can't say enough that you need to keep the quality high. Don't skimp. I always said as a grower, the most important thing you can do is have a high quality plant, soil, fertility, and growing environment. You can not really control the water, but you can test your water so you know what you're dealing with. So those things are so important to the quality of plant material and what you're able to grow and to show in your community. So the main thing is you don't want to skimp. People often ask why we grow proven winner plants. It preceded the designation as a proven winner signature city and a proven winner signature garden because as a broker rep, I was able to grow their plants. I also sold the plants for, 70 different vendors, putting together combinations of genetics for my growers to have the best success. I always started a young grower off with proven winners because I knew they were going to get the tech support and they were also going to get a quality product that they didn't have to ask a lot of questions about it. It was going to perform. And I think that's the main thing is you want performance. Now, we, you know, as you get experience, you can grow anything and you know how to manage it. So if you're, just getting started, it's up to you. If you're buying from a finished product, go with that. It doesn't have to be, but when we looked for something for Castle Rock, we knew that volunteers were going to be growing them, high school students were going to be growing them, young growers were going to be growing them, and we needed something that we could see the consistency of. And we also had the diversity of the product mix, which was annuals, perennials, grasses, and shrubs. So all from one source. Didn't have to worry about jumping around from vendor to vendor, although I support them all because they're doing an incredible job. And as we move on to like the Centauri with the Mandevilla, that's new for us, but we were given the opportunity to trial it. So always ask questions and always give yourself the opportunity to learn. And then make sure that you maintain what you plant regardless of the numbers. If you only have those 6 planters, make sure they are the best. Make sure they are just showstoppers. Don't let things go down. So many times cities will have a great planting day and they'll put a lot of money and they'll plant a lot of stuff. And then they just forget about the rest of it and think they'll take care of themselves or the business owners will. They don't always. So you just need to be there, back it up. Sometimes we're enablers. I'm sorry, but we just want to make sure that the product that we're showing the public and our community is the best that it can be. Takes many hands to make all of this work. And it's not always light work, but it's very rewarding work. So I encourage you to step out and try it. Again, don't grab everything at once. grab something that you can handle and make sure that if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me. We have our Facebook listings here. I know this is going to be available on a video as well so that you can, get to the links to get to the different entities to see what we're doing. We try to track everything we do with Castle Rock Blooms because it gives our 4,000 plus followers a chance to see what we're doing throughout the different seasons. And our website will take you to where those QRs land you, and then also the Facebook for the nonprofit, as well as the nonprofit website. So I, again, appreciate you joining us today. The picture on the right was taken in 2012. Yeah, it shows two of the volunteers with the buckets that are still with us today. The one that is kneeling has moved out of the area, but was one of the initial folks who joined after that cleanup day in 2012, and a business owner who has, bless her heart, passed away. But they joined in the cleaning and the revitalization of Castle Rock with the renovation of the downtown streets. And this was a fall cleanup, and Connie was right there sweeping her front stoop outside of her cafe. Um, so it's just all that community working together that is so important, and make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody's pulling in the same direction. Thank you very much. Appreciate you sticking with me today. This is a family, the Thomas family, that has adopted some gardens in Castle Rock and some planters, but they are planting as a family. Their mom, Lindsay, and four of her five uh, children who have become incredible volunteers and love to plant. And that small group of very thoughtful, committed citizens are changing their world. They're changing our world. And as Margaret Mead said, it's indeed the only thing that ever has. So again, thank you very much. And hopefully I left enough time for questions.
All right, Nancy, thank you so much. There are a lot of questions, so I don't know that we're going to get to all of them. We're going to do our best, and those that can stay past the top of the hour, please do. Nancy will hang out with us to answer questions. So Nancy, try to answer the question, but brevity is important as well. Okay, so here we go.
Nancy with brevity, they don't go together. You know that.
Do your best. I do want people to be able to,
Yes.
get a good.
Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
here we go. What type of training slash communication do you have with the businesses that maintain these planters? Do you provide
Okay.
fertilizer, maintenance instructions, etc.?
Yes, we started out initially giving them the nature source food. If we're talking about the summer, which I'm assuming you are, they would get the nature source plant food. We would tell them how much and when to do it. They wanted to make sure to do it at least once a week. We would still follow up on Fertilizer Friday to make sure that we were looking at everything and making sure it was okay. Talk to each individual business personally, gave them a flyer. With the new planters, we're finding we don't need as much of the fertility. So the once a week on Fertilizer Friday has been enough. So they don't have to worry about it. It's already good to go. And so we were able to take care of it with ourselves on Fertilizer Friday. We have talked multiple times to many businesses. There are some that maybe just won't ever get it. And I had one lady the other day that says, I'm not going to water them. You want them to look good, you're going to have to do it. So you will get some of those, but for the most part, people take a lot of pride in them and they want to take care of them themselves.
Next question. Do you have an average number of plants that you use in each 23-inch pot for your summer season?
Yes, 9 to 10, depending on what side of the street and where it is. We found this year that we were probably a little, and some of them ended up with 11 if we had several spillers in there. But because we had some basically rogues, if you will, salvias, the gomphrenias, the cannas, they took up a lot of space. We didn't need that many. So next year we're going to be more inclined to go with the 9.
Thank you. All right, regarding the $55 business sponsorship, is that annual or just an initial sponsorship to buy the containers?
Sorry, that's a good question because I didn't really address that when I talked about the 2 seasons. We have a billing that goes out in January that covers the sponsorship for holiday and also the pansies. And what we hope is that that sponsorship, because we've added decorations over the years, we don't have to make as big purchases for the holiday. Our greenery is donated. I don't think we've ever had to buy anything for greenery. But then the pansies and the bulbs, the price has gone up every year. And so we also found with the newer planters, we needed a few more to fill them in. So basically, we hope that sponsorship for holiday winter covers that pansy cost, which we found that it has. The summer planting season, which is the summer flowers, gets billed about the 1st of July. And so we want to make sure things are doing well. So we have two billings a year. So a one planter will cost a business $110 a year.
Great. What kind of watering tanks are in the community members' vehicles?
They have 50-gallon tanks, 50-gallon tanks with a pump system that Sarah initiated, shoot, 10 years ago. Um, And so those tanks are something that's been repeated. These vehicles all have a plug in, um, like a cigarette lighter that plugs in the pump. So they are 50 to 55 gallons. The side by side is the 65.
All right. Question is, how does this work with utilizing a public works vehicle and or equipment?
They are vetted. You have to get vetted and make sure that your insurance is covering. As volunteers on the streets of Castle Rock, we are covered by L&I that the city pays. And we also, I have to fill out a volunteer report every quarter so they know how many hours we are on those streets. But the main thing is that um, background check, everything that's done only applies to the side by side. Doesn't apply to the trucks. Doesn't apply to the truck with a 250-gallon tank that the city uses. But it does apply to the side by side.
How many people are part of your In Bloom organization?
Right now, I send out an email on an email blast for volunteer opportunities to about 100 people. I always include the Public Works Department, the Castle Rock High School, horticulture, FFA teachers, plus the counselors. We include the middle school, especially with their gardening class. Uh, so they all have knowledge of what we're doing, when and where. I include the coffee shop because a lot of times if we'll have a big uh, work event downtown will impact the coffee shop because we all want to go in and have a cup of coffee. But the main thing is that of those 100, there's probably depending on seasonally, 12 to 15 that are reliable, always show up, always there. Young people will come in and stick with it, and we totally appreciate that. Most of us are in our 70s, that we're retired. We have time to do this. Our families are raised, our businesses are, we've moved on, and so we're able to do it. So I totally appreciate those with families being able to pop in an hour or two. And that's what we say. You just come when you can, for as long as you can. Find something you're passionate about that you want to stick with. And then we're always looking to support whichever direction people want to go in with some training, with some help that along those lines.
And you may have touched on this, but I do want to ask the question. So how are you able to establish such a large number of volunteers and how to handle this type of physical activity?
Well, we're divided into the different areas. For one thing, we have people who are kind of heading up. Julie at the high school heads up the basket program. Um, there's those that have worked with the Fertilizer Friday group as a solid group for many, many years. So as people want to join in on the activity, we have the garden adopters that have basically nobody has to worry about anything because they'll get their own volunteers to help with their water and build their volunteer force. Always communicate within the group as volunteer coordinator. Nothing more important than coordinating those volunteers. But the main thing is that take it into small chunks and don't expect it to be all at once. We always have people say, I'd really like to join. I'd really like to be part of it. Some will come and actually do something. Some will come and find a passion. Some will have grandkids all the month of August, but they'll be there in the fall. So you find those people that fit within I always called it a pie. You've got a piece of pie, and people will find where they fit as a slice of that pie, and it makes a whole. And so that's the goal is to be able to find all the parts that make it work as a whole. Does that help? Does that
Hope.
answer?
Yeah, I believe so. The question is, do you hold any volunteer appreciation events or other types of opportunities for volunteers to interact independent of their work?
Yes, we have a big celebratory Christmas party, potluck, every December. Basically, once the containers are decorated for the holiday with a little bit of supplementing, and of course, we have a lot of hats that we wear because of it's a small community. Folks in our volunteer base are also involved with Festival of Lights, but there's kind of a time there of just celebration and getting a little bit more relaxed before the plants come in and et cetera for the spring. So we have a big Christmas potluck, gift exchange, fun stuff. Um, Last year we stuffed socks for the Cowlitz County Drug Court clients, which was a wonderful team building event. So we do that in the downtime, if you will. But then we also have the Vault coffee card, which we get donations for and keep that card full. And the volunteers are welcome to go in as a group that are volunteering or individually, or they just need a hot drink or a cold drink in the summer or an ice cream. And then you can go in and put it on the Blooms card. So it's kind of like a thank you, and they know it's there. And then they can take new volunteers in too, and they're always totally surprised that they can have a coffee. And they get, and I'll wash their gloves for them.
That's great.
Oh,
We're
and then we have our potluck. I'm sorry. Then we have our potluck when the American and Blue advisors are there in the summertime. So that's a recognition time as well.
Absolutely. I've got a few questions on bulbs. I'll ask them separately. What kind of bulbs do you use in your containers?
Okay. The bulbs that we found are the most reliable as far as repetition, multiplying. We've got them all over town because we're always thinning them out, are the Tate mini daffodils. The taller daffodils, some of the businesses will ask for them, but because of our rain and wind, they'll often get knocked over and they just don't look their best. But those little Tates, first to bloom, they call them February gold sometimes for a reason. And then the red tulips, Castle Rock colors are red and white. We started with red tulips way back in the early days in 2012. We always make sure we have red tulips.
When are the bulbs planted?
The bulbs are planted in from 4-inch pots at the time we put the pansies in. Um, if we have extras or something, we just save them and plant them then. They always come up and they always bloom. Trying to put them in around the root wads when we're cutting back for winter greens, it doesn't work.
Do the bulbs stay in the planters year round?
Yes, they do. I'm sorry. Yes. The bulbs stay in the planters year round. They need to be divided. We do that in the spring before the pansies go in. If we need more, then we'll put more in.
Another bulb question. Do you keep back some planters for planting with bulbs, or do you raise bulbs separately and place in planters as pots?
Yeah. We buy the bulbs from our grower that we get the pansies from. It's just easier to do that. That way we know we've got consistency. He pulls them out of the cooler just like 2 weeks before we need them, so they color up. They're just exactly right, full of roots, not very tall. It's a grower that I've worked with since 2001, so we have a history there that he knows what our expectations are, and he'll bend over backwards to fulfill that at the right time of the spring.
So somebody wants to know, do you work for Castle Rock? In other words,
No,
do you?
I am a volunteer.
Yes.
Thankfully, I am a volunteer. I would not be paid for this job if they offered it to me. I'm
And
sorry. I know there's some volunteer coordinators that are, but you know what? That's what being retired is all about. You do what you want, when you want to do it. Given free time now with the division of all these labors, if you will, and volunteer opportunities to watch my grandgirls play soccer and, you know, go to graduations and things like that. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So, no, I'm a volunteer.
and I'm speaking for you, but you're alluding to that you like it being just a volunteer. But do you think that there are instances where you need a paid staff member to arrange all of this?
Yes, there are probably communities that would need that. Um, but what I've always said, and I've visited with a lot of communities that are kind of looking to do what Castle Rock's doing, is that first of all, you need to make sure you've got all of your stakeholders on the same page. You've heard me say that before, pulling in the same direction. The other thing is that paid volunteer coordinator needs to be in the trenches with the volunteers. You can't just be in a desk somewhere saying it needs to be done and this needs to be done and this needs to be done. You need to be there. There's been times when Shrisha and I have been there, we're the only ones there. Or she'll be the only one at City Hall, or I'll be the only one on the street. That's okay because I'm there because I want to be. And so never be affronted by that, never be sad about that because that's what I want to do. Usually there's people in the wings that are waiting to come in and put in what time they can when they can.
All right, we're going to change gears a bit. When using cut materials, like dried natural materials, do you purchase or collect and or process from donations from the community?
The greenery is twofold. We have donations from the community, but we always make sure that it has, especially after a dry summer, some sort of irrigation. You know, what they're cutting, you know, it's at an edge of a lawn, say, where it may have gotten some moisture and some water through a dry summer. But we have purposely planted in the landscapes throughout Castle Rock certain conifers that we can use over and over again. They're always going to need some pruning. And so we selectively prune. There's a group of the Serbian cypress that has a wonderful silver back. We have some at Gateway Park and we have some at the island by the North Trailhead. And we rotate. I don't prune from all of it in any one year so that we've always got fresh fronds. The hydrangeas are gleaned from Castle Rock. And then again, the Pamela dwarf pampas grass that we used was planted purposely at the southern entrance water feature for this specific purpose so that we have that available in the fall. So those keep those in mind as you're building landscape and gardens. We have yet to purchase any dried flowers or cut greenery, depending on donations and what is in the landscapes that we're able to cut.
Okay, so the question is, did you say you have a dedicated space for your organization to house a large number of plants to be planted and to organize slash be a hub for planting or work days?
Well, the spaces we have are not huge. There's a donated, we had a greenhouse builder who built home kits that donated a small greenhouse. It's only 10 by 40, I think, out at North County at the boat launch on city property. That was donated in 2016, maybe. But that's a donated space. And then there's my small greenhouse, which is not large either. It's 32 by 44. But the main thing is that with the staging of orders, we can grow what we need for Castle Rock in those spaces. And those are donated. And we also have access to, for the generosity of the Castle Rock High School, horticulture staff and Julia, heated space when we need it. And so her space is not huge and it's full because she grows a large plant sale product. So having lots of people work, they can work in the small houses. We've had so many people in that little house out at North County before. On a nice day, we'll actually plant outside and move the plants inside. So we make it work. The warehouse that we use, the vet, is divided into two areas right now. The haunted house is in the back half of it. Use it for storage the rest of the year, but the street art haunted house will be there at the end of the month. But the front part is our warehouse, if you will. And you saw where the gnomes were built and the people were out on the street. We fill spaces up. We also have access to, through the generation or the generosity of the owner, the Women's Club, where we can have indoor warm events like our party in December. We also have the North County Recreation Complex with a wedding pavilion, but it's seasonal. It'll be, summertime for like potlucks and things like that. And because of our work on the landscape there, then we get that at no charge. So we do have spaces.
Oh, you guys have figured it out. All right, so this is again back to volunteers. So do you plant and hold activities outside of school and or work hours to obtain these volunteers? And do schools allow day volunteer time?
Yeah. Okay. To answer that, yes. We try to do scheduling, especially in the spring as the days get longer. Castle Rock School, high school especially, they each grade 9 through 12 has so many community service hours they have to do. By the time you're a senior, you do 8. 2 as a freshman, 4, 6, and 8 as a senior. So that's why the school district counselors get our volunteer activities. We try to plan those for after school, for Saturdays, for weekends. The Calais County Drug Court volunteers, most of those had jobs. We planned those for Saturdays and Sundays. We got most response on Sundays because some of them worked on Saturdays. So we do things outside of the normal workday a lot. Many times it depends on the length of the day. This time of year, of course, our end of the day, it gets shorter and shorter, so we're not able to do as much.
Nancy, remind us, how many total number of containers do you maintain through the summer? And also please include your hanging basket number.
Should I add them together or tell you one or the other?
Separately.
Thank you.
We won't make
Right
you do
now
math today.
we plant and display 220 baskets. Oh, sorry, one got stolen. I forgot. 219 baskets. Sad note is sometimes that happens. 219 baskets and 198 of the planters. Almost every single one of them is a crescent true drop. 23-inch pinch pot. Uh, there are business owners that said, but I bought these planters, I like them, or I want to have these planters. If they have an already established planter that they're attached to. So there's maybe 3 or 4 of those, but 198 planters all told. And that does include the big planters like Linda takes care of at the studio, as well as Haircut Express.
And remind you the population of Castle Rock, Washington.
It's growing, 200, 2,400. We started
Okay.
this at 2,100 and now it's 2,400.
Booming metropolis, and it's a
Yes, it
beautiful
is.
place to visit. Yes. All
Growing
right.
at just the right pace. Thank you very much.
So are you hanging plant, excuse me, let's try to read this better. Are you hanging planter buckets or cocoa line baskets? We're having a hard time with hanging containers holding enough water for the plants, especially during these hot summers.
Yes. Um, we still have availability on the basket seminar, right? The basket webinar that's
That,
online.
that is
Okay. But
online.
this is but this is a, we trial everything and all of our baskets, including what the high school grows for the school district, which is separate from our numbers, are all in Carl Eckert's Labor Savers. 23-inch H2O Labor Saver baskets with a water reservoir that holds 2.5 gallons. Um, we trialed those. The downtown lampposts, when the street first went in, were spec'd at a 3-gallon pot. And I looked at Dave, Public Works, and I said, there's no way. You can't grow a city basket in a 3-gallon pot. So we bumped it to a 6-gallon Cordova the first year. And obviously, with only 38 baskets, they worked their tails off to keep those looking good. But we had some 10 gallons we trialed, and then Carl gave us some to try. Try, always test them. So we tested the 10-gallon next to the Labor Savers, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Public Works documented the amount of care they put in them, and it did save 40% on labor because they didn't have to water them as much. So I recommend them highly. There are other water reservoir types out there, which are probably can be used as well, but we are definitely a proponent of, and that's where we have 219 of those.
Awesome.
And the city bought them. The investment and what they saw in savings, the investment was worth it.
How many streets are the planters and hanging baskets on?
Uh, because we do north-south, we don't have any baskets on the west side. So we've got planters on the west side. We have planters and baskets on the east side, leading up to Mount St. Helens. There's round out to 30 down the side street, another 30. So there's 60 baskets on the east side, along with probably 11, 12, maybe 14 planters as we add new businesses. And then the downtown street includes the main street as well as the cross streets of First and Front coming off of the freeway all the way from the visitor center at exit 49 all the way down through the parks and the residential area into downtown.
All right, we are finishing up. We've just got a few more questions to go. How can a community acquire new or trial plants as donations?
Okay, the trialing would be a relationship that you would build with, say, if you're buying finished product and you want to try some new plants. Speaking as a grower and speaking as a broker rep that represented a lot of growers, they can ask for new plants. The place to start would probably be at visiting trials, going to places that were showcasing new plants. And they're all over the United States. Depending on where you are, you should be able to find one close where somebody is growing plants to showcase to the nursery industry that actually having consumer feedback is valuable because then that is a way that they can know what they're going to be able to sell to their customer base. So you could start by visiting those and having conversations with those folks to say, you get something new, can I try it? As a broker rep, I had that benefit of trialing all those different things, but not everybody is going to have that opportunity. So that, and if you've got a company that you're working for and you're buying finished, just have them do some asking because they're again the breeders and the plant suppliers, they want to get the product out there. Nothing can show you better the colors of plants and how they grow than growing it yourself. And so they want to find out what you're thinking too. So all you just ask, and you may find boxes of stuff landing on your doorstep.
So Castle Rock is a proven winner's signature city. What does that mean?
In 2018, we were approached at CAST spring trials in California. Um, by proven winners who saw Julia from the high school, Tom Smith from Four Star. Sorry, Tom, name dropping there. But he saw Julia and he saw her name tag and it said Castle Rock High School, horticulture, ag. He looked at her and he said, who sends a high school ag instructor to CAST, to spring trials? Who does that? She went with us. I've been going since 2001, but she went with us so she could learn. And he said, tell me about Castle Rock. So one thing led to another. And Tom said, you know what? We don't have any signature cities, but Castle Rock needs to be one. He said, oh, okay. And I already, explained why we grow, not exclusively, but why we grow proven winter plants. And they they're worth the investment. And so they decided that, and they vetted us. They came and looked. Tom Ewing came and looked, checked us out, and then said, by all means. So in 2018, we were chosen as the first signature city. They'd never had one before. They have signature gardens, but not cities. But nothing would make me happier if there was a whole bunch of them.
Make me happy too.
It just shows that people are growing good plants in good locations and doing it what I think we're doing it right. And I don't mean to brag. I just think that we've got the program in place that we're able to have success with it, and it shows.
It sure does. All right, just a couple more questions. Sharisha with Castle Rock Blooms has been helping answer these questions along the way, but I did want to give you a chance to answer this question. How much variability do you have in your planters? We try to match as much as possible downtown for continuity. So Sharisha
Yeah,
said you do have a city theme.
yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we found, and this was a comment from our American and Bloom advisors many years ago, because we would just mix it up. And I always call them jelly bean planters. More color, the better, and just, mix it up in your eyes and from your baskets hanging, all different colors down the street and your planters. And it's exhausting when you think about it. If you're doing a landscape, you want that continuity of movement. You want your eyes to move through it peacefully and to see all the beauty. And so it made a lot of sense to take a group of plants that you would look down the street and you would see that continuity of foliage and texture and color that was continuous. And of course, taking into account the shady side versus the sunny side. So they're going to be different, but that's okay.
All right, final question. Good luck with this one. Put your math hat on. How many individuals work on this project in each phase? Phases could include planning, preparation, implementation, and cleanup.
Okay. So start with the baskets. Um, Julie at the high school has now taken that on as the lead, if you will. Um, Volunteers are there to mentor still. I always said if I did nothing else but grow, I would be happy grower. So that's where I want to spend the majority of my time working with the students. So 26 students in her greenhouse management class every year. So you put those 26, 3 or 4, 5 volunteers at any one time. Planting day, there could be as many as 10. So 10, 26, 36, Julia, um, say 40 with the basket part. We do get help from the Department of Corrections and the drug court volunteers that when it's time to take them down and clean out the planters and things like that, that they'll be kicking it up and doing that along with Public Works. The containers themselves, the actual changing out, and you see a family of 5, 6 right there. That's just one small part of the volunteer base on that particular container. So the containers themselves attract kind of it's not a different group, as a group that's really committed to planting both in the pansies, the summer stuff, as well as the fall decorations. So again, it could vary, but I'd say total um, number of people is probably close to 30, maybe 36. And I'm not counting myself. But yeah, 30, 36. The garden adopters, we have 1, 2, 3 main, 6, 3, 4 main areas of town plus the visitor center. So there's 5 different gardens to adopt. And those volunteers work with their families, they work with volunteer groups and kind of call for help from the volunteer base if they need it. Um, so that's probably, if you had those 5 areas and you had like 3, and oh, Sharisha, I'm not counting like Villager with a high school, or excuse me, the middle school gardening class. There's another 19, 20 students that are available for the Villager retirement in. So, that base can expand and contract depending on the season. The amount of people that come for Castle Rock Cleanup Day, where a lot of these projects are initiated and a lot of the bigger things happen, like at the Southern Ventures water feature and stuff, there's usually 200 plus volunteers that come to Castle Rock Chamber Cleanup Day. And those volunteers have tasks. The committee starts in January for outlining the different types of projects and tasks to do, how many volunteers are needed, and how many students they'd like to have. Because the students at the high school and the middle school will volunteer for those to help build their hours for their community service hours. So we work closely with the counselor at the high school to put those work parties, if you will, together. So 200 plus. So I don't know, add them up. Somebody add them all up. But a lot of them in a small community, as you know, it's all the same people, just wearing different hats.
That's remarkable. All right, that's the end of our questions, Nancy. Is there anything you wish to add before we close?
Just a thank you and just a reminder, maintain the quality, maintain the plants, and have fun. Because I mean, none of us would be doing this if we weren't enjoying it and having a blast. And one of the things that we've done and we never want to forget is that we have made such close friends and friendships from random people you never would have um, been grouped together with, if you will. But you get your hands in the dirt and you're hauling stuff out and you're creating and you're growing and all of a sudden it's like, how would I ever get along without these people? And not just from a volunteer standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. So it does have its benefits. It's volunteering with benefits. How's that?
And I think the quote that on the screen from Margaret Mead is just so appropriate for everything that's happening in Castle Rock. So keep up the
Yes.
great work.
Yeah. And that's the one I've used with the Castle Rock Community Development Alliance since its inception. And it just seems so appropriate to just keep repeating it. So thank you.
Sure does. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. That was
Thanks.
absolutely outstanding. We really appreciate your being with us today. We will have a recording of this webinar posted on the AIB website later today, and it will be posted on the Facebook page today. Our next webinar is Tuesday, November 18th at 12 noon Eastern Time. It is called Flourishing Communities, Using the Right Plants for Sustainable and Stunning Public Spaces. And that webinar will be presented by Josh Miller of Proven Winners. You don't want to miss that webinar. You can learn more about this and other webinars we offer by visiting our website at americainbloom.org. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thanks again to Nancy for the wonderful presentation. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Nancy.